Hello, everybody. Welcome to Wednesday night's Narrative Live. I almost forgot where I was tonight. It's so good to be with you tonight. We're continuing our great investigation into the untold story of January 6th with our two fabulous guests. Sandy Bacon is here. Hi, Sandy. How are you?
I'm strobing.
You are
Hi.
strobing a little bit, but we're glad to have you back. Last night was terrific. Looking forward to tonight.
Thank you.
And Joe Dempsey is here as well. The researcher has been doing a lot of great work for us. How are you doing tonight, Joe?
Doing well, Zev. Thanks.
And the focus tonight is going to be all about Jones and Stone. It sounds like a legal firm. They're not a legal firm. They're, in fact, two of the people subpoenaed for the January 6th Commission. We'll tell you why they are in deep trouble. And that is coming up right after the starting block. And the top of the news tonight, a jury of 11 whites and one black has convicted 3 white men for the killing of a black man, Ahmed Arbery. That is a big news story these days, of course. The jury deliberated for about 10 hours before convicting Greg McMichael, son Travis McMichael, and neighbor William Roddy Bryan, who all face minimum sentences of life in prison. It is up to the judge to decide whether that comes with or without the possibility of parole. Travis McMichael stood for the verdict, his lawyer's arms around his shoulder. At one point, McMichael lowered his head to his chest. After the verdicts were read, as he stood to leave, he mouthed, "Love you," to his mother, who was in the courtroom. According to the Associated Press, Greg McMichael hung his head when the judge read his first guilty verdict, and Robbie Bryan bit his lip. Moments after the verdicts were announced, Arbery's father, Marcus Arbery Sr., was seen crying and hugging supporters outside the courtroom. He didn't do nothing wrong, the father said, but run and dream. Ben Crump, attorney for Arbery's father, spoke outside the courthouse, saying repeatedly that the spirit of Ahmed defeated the lynch mob. Indeed, it seems that in this case, justice has prevailed. Manhattan District Attorney Cyrus Vance appears to be letting Trump Organization COO Matthew Calamari off the hook. And he will not be indicted in the investigation into the Trump Organization. The district attorney's office charged both the Trump Organization and its chief financial officer, Alan Weisselberg, with crimes related to an alleged scheme to avoid paying taxes on executive compensation. I have been informed that there is no present intention to bring charges against Mr. Calamari. His attorney, Nicholas Cravanti, told CNBC in an email, "We believe that it is a fair and just decision." By the way, Vance leaves office in just a few weeks. He'll be replaced on January the 1st by Alvin Bragg, the first black person to hold that office. It's unclear if Vance will have indicted anyone else in the Trump Organization by the time he leaves office. And speaking of the Trumps, key organizers of the January 6th rally used cash to buy burner phones for calls of the utmost importance. 3 sources are telling Rolling Stone magazine that Kylie Creamer took one of those phones and used it to communicate with top White House and Trump campaign officials, including Eric Trump, his wife Lara Trump, and former Chief of Staff Mark Meadows and Christina Pearson, a Trump surrogate and campaign consultant. All of this is interesting stuff, of course, because why would they need burner phones if they weren't doing anything underhand or untoward? Also, the D.C. Circuit Court of Appeals has notified lawyers for former President Trump that the January 6th Select Committee and National Archives should be prepared to address whether the court has jurisdiction to hear the case where they are trying to withhold documents from the January 6th Commission. It sure looks like the commission is going to get all the documents it needs from the Trump administration. That's the starting block tonight. Coming up, we'll take a deep dive into Stone and Jones. Sounds like a law firm, but it isn't, as we continue the January 6th investigation, the untold story. Hey friends, thank you for supporting Narrative and our sponsors. What's easier than opening a can of cranberry sauce? Getting free life insurance quotes with Policy Genius, of course. If you're looking for something to do while the family is running a turkey trot, you can be just as productive by comparing quotes from top life insurers with Policy Genius. Why Policy Genius? Well, Policy Genius makes it easy to compare quotes from over a dozen top insurers, all in one place. And why compare? Well, you could save 50% or more on life insurance by comparing quotes with Policy Genius. You could save $1,300 or more per year on life insurance by using Policy Genius to compare policies. The licensed experts at Policy Genius work for you, not the insurance companies, so you can trust them to help you navigate every step of the shopping and buying process. That kind of service has earned Policy Genius thousands of 5-star reviews across Trustpilot and Google. And eligible applicants can get covered in as little as a week, thanks to an award-winning policy option that swaps the standard medical exam requirement for a simple phone call. This exclusive policy was recently rated number 1 by Forbes Advisor, higher than options from Ladder, Ethos, and Bestow. This is how it works. Getting started is really easy. First, you head to policygenius.com. In a minute, you can work out how much life insurance coverage you need, and from there you can compare personalized quotes to find out your best price. It's as simple as that. When you're ready to apply, the Policy Genius team will handle the paperwork and scheduling all for free. Head to policygenius.com to get started right now. Policy Genius. When it comes to insurance, it's nice to get it right. And it's
Oh. Sound.
now you can hear me. Now you can
There
hear
you
me. I'm
go.
sorry. These buttons
Hold
are
on.
confusing sometimes. I'll start all that again. Let's continue now with our January the 6th Untold Story investigation. We're unpacking everything we need to know that happened on January 6th as it relates to the subpoenas that came out this week from the commission in the House that is investigating the events of January 6th, the insurrection or the attempted coup, depending on how you view it. Sandy, you look like you're having a little bit of trouble there with your camera. Is everything ready? You good to go?
Yeah, I'm not very good at this. Sorry, I'm
You know,
better
you and
behind
me
the
both,
camera
so-
than in front.
And it's also Thanksgiving Eve, so we're sort of all forgiven for doing whatever. We're here.
It's
And
about
so-
forgiveness.
Yes. And thank you both for being here, Joe Dempsey and Sandy Bacon. Sandy, of course, a reporter who is on the ground there on January the 6th and has been on the ground covering a lot of the movements of the MAGA world all the way leading up to January the 6th and beyond. And she joins us now with her perspective. And Joe Dempsey has been investigating all the events that have happened since January 6th and doing some terrific finding and investigating there. So welcome to you both. Last night, we spoke about militias. We spoke about the First Amendment Praetorians. We spoke about the Proud Boys, and we spoke about the Oath Keepers. That was interesting because it connected to all these other people that seemed to be involved in the planning of January the 6th. But tonight, we're going to the very core of it. We're going to the two people that I think were really the genesis of the idea, but also the people who executed the idea. And that is Roger Stone and Alex Jones. And both of these two have got interesting subpoena letters from the commission. Alex Jones got a really long one, like 3 pages.
Yeah.
We'll go through that in a bit, and we'll explain why he gets these very, very long ones. But as we explained yesterday, there's, the theory around how January the 6th came together hasn't really changed since January the 6th in terms of the way narrative has viewed this whole thing, because these are the people who organized it. Roger Stone basically put up a militia. Alex Jones organized a lot of the propaganda. Michael Flynn did a lot of the recruiting through things like QAnon. And then you had Rudy Giuliani, Sidney Powell setting the lie. And of course, Bannon out there in the background doing strategy, and Ali Alexander, who is an outlier from this group, but still very much involved in setting up what happened on January the 6th. So those two names, Roger Stone and Alex Jones, got subpoenas just the other day from the commission. And it's interesting to see what each of them says. And, I'll let you go first, Joe. Why don't you talk a little bit about how you see Roger Stone's involvement in particular, and then we'll get to Alex a little later.
Well, it's interesting. I think, you look at what you see on the screen here, the plotters, and you look at what, the January 6th committee has put together in terms of the people that they want to speak to. And if you look at it, these are the droids we're looking for, right? I mean, we kind of sort of know that these are the people we're looking for. Roger Stone being so close to Stop the Steal from 2016 perspective. Remember, they kind of had that in the bag because they were afraid that if Hillary were to win, then they could just kind of come forward and say, stop the steal, and, this whole thing. And they sort of had that in the bag for the 2016 election. Well, they didn't need it. So now it's kind of this thing that's, gotten out of hand. But, his proximity to everybody involved, whether it be the Proud Boys, whether it be the Oath Keepers, whether it be, any Ali Alexander or any of these others, he's just right there.
He is right there.
It's like,
there's no doubt about it.
He never goes away.
You know him. You followed him around at least. Tell me what you think of him as you followed his speeches, as you followed his he's kind of a charismatic guy, isn't he, Sandy?
Me? Oh, I only was in his presence once, and that was on January 5th, because I kept missing him. But one thing that you should remember is that there were 3 Stop the Steal rallies. We talked about this last night. November 14th, there were actually 40-something of them, but the big ones that led up to January 6th were November 14th and December 12th. And it was all the same speakers. Roger Stone was there. Interestingly enough, Roger Stone was there with his usual security guy, Enrique Tarrio, on December 12th. And they spoke from the lobby of this hotel directly across the street from the Willard. It's like the cheap hotel, the Marriott or something like that. And the InfoWars guy introduced them, who has been subpoenaed or maybe indicted. What's that guy's name?
He's Stroyer, I think is his name, or something like that.
Yeah. Sure.
This is the tape you have for us, and we're going to play for us a little later on. Stones talks about God, and he talks about sort of religious awakening, and I don't believe he's a very religious guy. Maybe he is. I don't know.
None of them
but
are.
we'll unpack that speech in just a few minutes, because I think it is really interesting that you got that video. And a lot of people have not paid attention to the words of Roger Stone and Alex Jones, because everyone just writes them off as being sort of crazy. But when you listen to the speech and you listen to the words, you really can see what they're doing to the crowd and how they're manipulating people into believing what they do believe. Think about Roger Stone. You can't escape about Roger Stone is that he has known Donald Trump forever. Like forever. These people are not new friends. They go way, way back. I found some nice photos of all of these guys. I mean, Roger Stone has been around presidents for all his life. Of course, a big fan of Nixon. He's got a big Nixon tattoo on his back, but also, very close to Ronald Reagan. But he has been Mr. Donald Trump's, body man, sidekick, whatever you want to call him, for a very long time. Those are not new pictures you're seeing there of Trump or Stone. So they go back a very, very long way. And they have, in terms of who the commission is talking to regarding Donald Trump, I mean, you've got someone there who's going to be very loyal to Donald Trump, but they are talking to one of the former president's closest people. And then they are subpoenaing all this information and requesting all these documents. They are requesting it from one of the former president's closest advisors, who knows all his secrets, all the dirtiest of secrets. Not someone who's just been in the White House, but someone who really knows him. Now, chances are Roger Stone won't squeal on his boss, but boy, I mean, they are going right for the jugular there.
Too. He's also a swinger.
He is, in fact, a swinger.
Yeah, totally.
I've got that little that here. In fact, let's pause for a second, because I was able to find this. This is Roger Stone's top dole aide caught in a group sex ring.
There you go.
This is the National Enquirer expose. Obviously not compromised in any way. I'm sure nothing like that. But not that we'll indulge in anyone doing compromise. But there he was, way back when, with his wife then, I think still his wife, caught in a big, sex swinging thing in D.C. Nothing wrong with that, of course. Just
did Roger Stone go back to Roy Cohn days? Was he involved with Roy Cohn at all?
Yes.
Was he involved with Roy Cohn?
Yes, there's a wonderful documentary about it. Get me Roger Stone, or where's my Roger Stone?
Oh, that's interesting.
Yeah, he's Roy Cohn was his mentor.
They act the same.
What's interesting about that too is the fact, if he is in fact a mentor or whatever, I think we have to start thinking about the next generation after Roger Stone.
Mm-hmm.
We're starting to see those people who are at these rallies, this sort of younger generation that's looking to take over for some of these others. Yeah,
the dirty tricksters of the next generation. Interesting, and Stroyer is one of those people to think about. We should mention, because it is really important to remember, that Roger Stone was, and maybe still is, quite close to Manafort and Black. Remember, now Black we haven't heard of in a long time, but I remember this is the consultancy they formed way back when, in Nixon days, I suspect, or before that even. Maybe it was after Nixon, who knows? Where they're political partners in trying to do all sorts of interesting lobbying in the United States to drum up, weird issues for foreign governments. So, you get a sense of their money, their loyalty, often coming from foreign governments. That's certainly where they seem to get a lot of their inspiration from and a lot of their funding from. They seem to be involved with people who are involved in organized crime, whether it's Donald Trump or Nixon or whomever. There seems to be a long road there. But let's look at the documents. Let's look at what the committee has said about Roger Stone in particular. It's going to just give me 1 second here to pull this up. But, we should remember that Roger Stone was pardoned for a crime which he never, ever confessed to, which gives you a sense of how close he's going to be and how loyal he's going to be to Donald Trump as they try to get information from him. I mean, he's just not going to give a lot out, is he?
No.
And when he was pardoned, he was then immediately let go. I mean, he sort of jumped right into this new campaign, even though Stop the Steal was not something new for him. I mean,
That's
this
his.
is certainly something that
No, that's his line.
It's
That's his
his
line.
concept,
That and,
right?
and
His
build
concept.
the wall. No, it's his line. It's like yeah, because he came up with it, and he also came up with build the wall because Trump is too dumb to talk about immigration.
So then he just come to something short and snappy.
Yeah,
The
exactly.
investigation and public
and
reports have revealed credible evidence of your involvement in the events within the scope of Select Committee's inquiry. According to documents provided by the Select Committee, press reports and statements by you were in Washington, D.C. on January 5th and 6th, 2021. We can attest to that. To attend and
Yes.
speak at rallies in support of then President Trump and his allegations of election fraud. Specifically, you reportedly spoke on January the 5th at rallies at the U.S. Supreme Court held by a group affiliated with the 3%ers and Freedom Plaza. That's the one I think you were talking about there,
I had,
Sandy,
yeah.
held by the
Yeah.
80% Coalition. And we were originally scheduled to speak at the January 6, 2021 rally at the Ellipse, held by the Women for America First, before traveling to Washington. You promoted your upcoming appearance on January 6 Stop the Steal event and solicited donations from supporters to pay for security by directing them to stopthesteal.org. While in Washington, you reportedly used members of the Oath Keepers and personal security guards, several of whom were reportedly involved in the attack on the Capitol, and at least one of whom has been indicted. You have stated that you were invited to lead the march to the Capitol from the Ellipse rally on January the 6th, but did not end up doing so or going to the Ellipse rally or the Capitol on that day. Let's talk about what happened there, because you very smartly pointed out, Sandy, that the president was late. Trump was late for his speech that day. And
Well, he's always late. In his defense.
But the march became sort of completely disorganized at that point. There was, I think, a plan to have, the Alex Jones and Roger Stones of the world lead this march. That never really happened. It sort of all just fell apart.
No,
it became mushy.
But what time? I meant to ask you this. Last night you showed a clip of, I think a friend of mine actually filmed that, of Alex Jones speaking and saying, "Come this way. Trump's going to come on the other side of the street," or something. Do you know what time that was? Curious.
I do not. I don't know.
No.
I don't know. But there certainly was the intention, and that was their plan, according to Alex Jones and according to Stone, that there was going to be a march now, and that they were going to lead this march, and they were going to meet Trump along the way. That was the sort of the idea that they were promulgating. Never happened because I think Trump was still speaking at the time of them going to the march starting, because he was late. Why was he late?
I missed going into the Capitol because I followed the Proud Boys first came. Back up a second, because when Enrique was arrested, that was like just never felt right to me. I believe that they took him out of action.
Who's them? The police took him out of
Trump.
Oh.
Whoever the planners were, because on December 12th, he was in charge of thousands of Proud Boys, and they acted like little kindergarten kids. They'd hold on to each other's shoulders when they would leave. They kind of keep them in a group, and they come on, Proud Boys, get
So you think in order to make it more of a disarray event, more chaos?
My theory, because Enrique was always Roger Stone's security guy.
Yeah.
Always, everywhere. He did his social media for him. They're both from Florida, I guess. And he was Trump's Hispanics for Trump, or whatever that group is.
Latinos for Trump.
Yeah. And then he was arrested on this weird charge of high capacity magazines.
Yeah.
And then he was just gone. And
a lot of people think he's an informer. A lot of people think he's an informant, and that's one of the reasons they took him out. They didn't want him involved in it. The other people, they're all sort of informants because they've all been involved in various ways.
I mean, Gavin McInnes gave all of the Proud Boys up when he's actually trolling me because I said this before.
Oh, yeah?
But when they had with the street fight, he gave them all up, and then he quit.
Speaking of trolling, it's interesting that Joe Flynn now is apparently watching Narrative now. So yeah, he's been commenting on our show lately. So Joe, as I mentioned to you on Twitter, you're more than welcome to be a guest on the show. Rather than trolling us, you can come on. We'll talk it out. We'll see what we can find out about you and your brother, and have a very free, frank, and live conversation, which we cannot in any way change or censor. All right, so let's take a look at that Stone video. So this is at the Freedom Plaza. This is they talk about him speaking at this event. It's very weird. It's very weird to hear Stone talk like this, and I don't think people have paid enough attention to what Stone is actually saying. So set the scene for us, Sandy. You're at the Freedom Plaza, right? At this across the road from the Willard. What's going on there?
Well, I got there about, I want to say 6 o'clock. I can't remember what time he was supposed to go on, but they have been speeches all day long. And when I got there, Flynn had just finished speaking, and Ali Alexander and George Papadopoulos introduced the speakers, and I realized all these guys were pardoned. They were all the guys pardoned by Trump.
Right, it's a pardon
they're
parade.
on the same bill. And supposedly, Alex Jones was supposed to have spoken at the Ellipse, but he got bumped, and Trump personally intervened to make sure that he gave that speech at the Freedom.
We'll get to the speech from Alex Jones in a second. Let's take a look at what this is really interesting. I always love watching this guy talk. So here's Roger Stone.
So I thank God for giving the greatest president since Abraham Lincoln the wisdom, the courage, the strength to correct this injustice. We are here on such an improbable night. In fact, everything about the Trump presidency is improbable. That a billionaire who cannot be bullied and cannot be bought and cannot be controlled would rise up to save this nation from the two-party duopoly that ran this country into the ground. They told us he couldn't possibly win, but he did. Then they told us he couldn't possibly revive our economy because it was structurally impossible. You see, you Americans just have to get used to having a backbench in the global economy. And Donald Trump said no. And his series of tax cuts and regulatory cuts and his renegotiation of those massive international trade deals that were sucking the jobs out of America gave us the greatest economic boom in our country.
Now, it's a lot of crap, of course, everything he's saying, we should say, but it's interesting that here is a guy who, is basically a convicted felon, should have been a convicted felon if he was he actually convicted? Did he actually he was convicted, right?
If he accepted the pardon, he's convicted.
Yeah. So, on stage there, just telling a bunch of lies, thanking God. He opened the whole thing with his, spiritual reawakening, saying how excited he was to be any place other than a penitentiary, and that's how he's found God again. I mean, it's a lot of BS. This is the kind of, he's a very smarmy guy. He's got a way of spinning things in a way that few people can copy, and he's got a very unique sense of style, and people are attracted to him. Clearly he's got some sort of enigma that attracts these people to him, because when you see him in public, he is seems to be adored by them. Like, really adored by him.
Oh yeah, he's a legend. Yeah.
Totally normal for a guy in a zoot suit from the 30s talking about, how terrible a duopoly is,
Yes.
And when he went back to the Willard, because unfortunately, I saw him walking to the, at 7:15, he came across the street, which is kind of catty corner from where the Willard is, to the Freedom Plaza. And I see him coming, and I run out, and there's no light. I video, right? So I didn't have lights or anything. So I got shadows, this terrible video. And then after he left, I followed him back to the Willard, and he was with a blonde lady. Was that the madam?
He was with the Manhattan Madam. He was indeed with the Manhattan Madam. Lucky for us, she left us a little video as a cover story for him, because she was, at some point in the day during this January 6th, she posted something on Instagram with her on in his room, which was very weird and obviously not a completely accurate depiction of what was going on that night in that room or where he was, because just up the stairs from there was the war room, was the place that we're really planning all of the stuff. Maybe he didn't ever go there, maybe he did, but I don't know. I've got that tape here. So let's listen to the Manhattan Madam. This is her and Roger Stone from the Willard Hotel.
Oh,
Oh, is she not speaking? She's just looking. She should be speaking there, but she's not.
She looks like one of those sex dolls.
Yeah, she's quite famous, right? She previously, I don't know how he finds her. I don't know how he connects with her, but
They've been
apparently
friends forever. Yeah. I can't remember.
I was expecting her to talk there, but she's obviously not going to do that. So let me see if I can find that tape, and I'll play it a little bit later on and see what went on there. But yeah, that was where he said he was. There's another piece of tape that maybe you can help me identify, both of you, from Roger Stone a few weeks earlier. This is him on, I think it's January it must be actually December, somewhere in December. And it's, what does it say there?
That's it. That's the one I'm talking. That's December 12th.
Okay. What's going on here?
He's with the InfoWars guy, Stroyer.
Yeah.
He introduces him. I missed this.
Okay, let's take a listen.
For an honest count of the 2020 election. Never give up, never quit, never surrender, and fight for America. We have an obligation to see that the rightful winner of the 2020 election is seated, and that is the greatest president since Abraham Lincoln, Donald J. Trump.
So, I mean, it's interesting. There he is, advocating for the very thing that, landed up happening. And certainly as the commission looks at him as one of the key planners, there's no doubt that he's one of the people out there antagonizing the crowds, instigating the crowds, perpetuating the lie. And he's also connected to all the people who are organizing the actual attack on the Capitol. He seems to be like a guy who'd be in serious trouble. And because he knows the president so well, you'd expect him to know Donald Trump's, former president, so well. He'd know exactly what Donald Trump was thinking all the time, because he wouldn't be doing this without Donald Trump's approval.
That's an interesting tape, because I missed that, and I found out about it after my friends were there. So they were staying at whatever that hotel is, Caddy Corner. It's the Marriott. I don't know what it is. And that's on his own dime. He and Enrique were staying here. Enrique speaks at this event. And Enrique was just always with him. So Enrique gets arrested, December 4th or something? And all of a sudden, the Oath Keepers fill in. Well, the Oath Keepers had to have been in this plan much longer than 2 days before the event, because
they already were in the plan, because they were the official marshals, yeah.
So was that always a plan, that the Oath Keepers were going to just take over, or was because Enrique was? I just think the whole thing was a setup. That's just my.
The whole thing was a setup in terms of what?
That Enrique getting arrested and getting taken out of the picture, because he was arrested on a Bush League. It was a Bush League. No, to just get him away from there. And the Oath Keepers stepped in, because he was Roger Stone's guy for years.
Yeah, he was really Roger Stone's
I think there was a little bit of surprise, at least in the Proud Boys, because if you look at the indictment for conspiracy on the Proud Boys, I believe there's
Nordine, by the way, I think, behind to him.
So in that indictment, you've got Nordine and you've got Zachary Rell, and Zachary Rell was sort of in charge of getting the radio set up and getting everybody on the right channels and all those things. And there was another guy in there. I want to say his name is Yut Yut. It's a weird nickname, Charles O'Donoghue or something along those lines. But in that,
there's Enrique.
There's Tario right there.
Yeah.
So there he is with the head of the Proud Boys weeks before, addressing a crowd. Yeah. There's Nordine, also from the Proud Boys, weeks before, video evidence.
That's what I'm saying, and all of a sudden he disappears.
Yeah,
he was always there.
Unbelievable.
Yeah. This was the night before the Proud Boys march on the 12th.
Yeah.
Which was very violent, right? That was violent. That's Tario right there.
There were 4 stabbings.
And he's got his arm, actually his hand on Stone's shoulder, so he doesn't fall down or anything like that. Which, so this is interesting tape. And I think everyone should pay attention to this kind of stuff, because this was a planned, organized effort, and it ran weeks and weeks and weeks. And Stone, who's the president's advisor, was there doing it all himself. It's not like it's other people doing it. It was him. By the way, here's the madam. I think I have her now speaking. I think I've animated her voice. Let's see if we can listen to what she had to say on that day when she was describing what she was doing with Roger Stone.
Here we are in Roger Stone's suite watching the situation on the Capitol unfold. We are safe and sound.
That's your opinion? Because there was a story.
You mean that's just sound? That's your opinion?
There was a story that said that the DOD rather, the Department of Defense,
Safe and sound.
had refused,
In Roger.
Safe and sound, just like that. What a weird tape. I mean, that always stung to me like it doesn't feel real, right? I mean, that was
it is surreal to kind of see that when he's just sort of watching, everything sort of play out.
He said
sure
that's what he's doing. He was watching it. That's what he said he was doing.
I'm sure he was watching it, but I'm sure he was. There's a war room upstairs. Are you telling me he'd never showed up at the war room upstairs? I don't think so. I think he showed up at the war room and had a conversation with Giuliani and Meadows and everybody else. I mean, the day before, apparently, he was talking to all these congressmen trying to convince them to stop the steal. So. I find it hard to believe that this is just he was in his room all the time with the madam. Also
on the 12th was when Flynn was telling everybody that there had to be the Insurrection Act. Is that the thing? That's what it's called? The Insurrection Act or there's another word.
Insurrection Act. That was already, that's right.
That they have to put in the Insurrection Act. The military has to take over and they have to have another election. And the people that I filmed were parroting that. At the rallies, they were saying verbatim, whatever that.
It's so interesting. You keep saying that everyone kept having the same language, repeating the same stuff, which means the echo chamber's in full swing. Everybody's listening and everybody's repeating, and it's exactly how these lies get set. A couple of last thoughts before we move away from Roger Stone here. As I look at this guy, he is connected to all these parties that were involved in the January 6th insurrection. And Women for Trump is actually Women for America First, but it's the same kind of organization. Of course, he's MAGA connected through Donald Trump. He's connected to Women for Trump through his ex-wife, I believe, who used to be a partner of Women for Trump, not a partner in Women for America First, but she was a partner in Women for Trump back when that was an organization connected to InfoWars, because in fact, that's where he emerged. Roger Stone spent a lot of time on InfoWars with Alex Jones before he became, re-emerged, I should say, in the public light. Oath Keepers, we know he's connected to them because he was with them on the January the 6th as they were protecting him. The Proud Boys, we just mentioned, through the Tarios. And of course, he's Mr. Q. A lot of people thought he was Q.
It's Flynn, I think.
Yeah, but in terms of people bringing people, he was always the speculated guy for Q, or one of the speculated guys for Q, and certainly was involved when they did an analysis of everything Q. Roger Stone's Twitter account popped up as one of the most identified Twitter accounts for Q. So he's central to all of this. Is Mr. Stone? Right. I bet this might be a reason why he could be cooperating, and maybe that's why he got a much leaner.
I don't think so.
2-page thing. Then you don't think so?
No. I just don't think so. He's been doing this for 50, how many years?
And he always does this. He always cooperates in this sort of weak, wishy-washy way.
And he always gets away with it.
Because he cooperates. He says, I'll cooperate. I'll cut a deal. I'll give you all this information.
Like Enrique. Enrique.
And then he's always, he's gotten away with things because they all have, because they've also compromised in informing so many people.
Somebody's talking. I think Katrina Peterson, maybe. Katrina Peterson apparently has a record.
Oh, really?
She could go back to jail. Yeah, somebody put a picture of her up on.
I think there's a lot of people who are talking. I really do. I think that a lot of people are not going to lose their careers for Donald Trump or Roger Stone or Alex Jones or anybody else.
Yeah,
there were so many more people who were targets of requests for information than actually received subpoenas. So you start to wonder how much of the information did they comply with?
Volunteer.
What documents did they give? That somebody like the person who, let's say, put on the January 5th event maybe isn't somebody who can say, I'm just going to defy all these subpoenas and I'm going to take you to court and I'm going to do all these things. They may actually have to comply with the subpoenas just from a financial perspective.
Right,
so they have to give up those documents.
They might.
Yeah.
So go ahead.
Stone also has an added incentive beyond the January 6th stuff too. What I thought was interesting timing was as the subpoena came out for Stone, on the very same day, his lawyers actually answered the tax lawsuit that's against him that the IRS brought.
Really? Repeat that for everyone. So Stone did what just before?
So that came out of the Mueller investigation. I want to say there's some financial dealings having to do with some properties owned by Roger Stone, a company called Drake Ventures, maybe transference of property, and the bottom line was Stone answered the complaint against him on the same day. So that documentation came out the same day his subpoena did. So I don't know if that was to sort of give the other side something to talk about.
No coincidences happen in this world. They all seem to be connected. So it could be that that's
before you leave Stone, can I say one more thing about that speech, which was stunning to me? At the end of it, he goes into this thing about they whoever they are, they said there was a Russian hoax. There was the Russian hoax, and there was the Trump. He lists a whole bunch of things, and the COVID response hoax, and so all the things that they were doing. So he flips the script on it.
Yeah, he does it all the time.
They all do that. Trump is very famous for that, and then he says, but this is a very sophisticated psyop.
Yeah, I know, really.
Which is exactly what it is.
That's such a good point. You make such a good point. Right. I noticed that as he was up there were all this projection about all the things that they were doing and all the accusations they were saying about Biden. It was actually about themselves. It's an interesting point Sharon's making on the chat here, that Stone, Trump, Jones, Tario, Alexander, Flynn were all MIA in the actual Capitol seizure. Yes. Isn't that interesting? What does that tell you? Does it tell you that they are...
But they were there at the speech, right? Stone,
right.
Alexander, and
Jones was there. Flynn. Jones was actually walking towards the Capitol.
But what happened to them after?
And Alexander was there.
Jack Posobiec was in that tent. You need to find out who was in that tent the night before. They were all there. Flynn, all these people, all of them, because Alexander introduced Stone, I believe, and Alex Jones was there, and Stone, not Trump, Ali Alexander, Flynn had just spoken when I got there, and they were all in this tent, and that's where the Oath Keepers were in there. You showed the picture last night, right? Because my photographer friends were inside. So who was in there? And Jack Posobiec and this horrible girlfriend of his, Ashley St. Clair.
Yeah, this is really interesting. That what happened to Tario? Marie suggesting that maybe he was arrested by the cops in order to protect him because he's an informant. That's one possibility.
That's what I think. Yeah.
But all these other people. Maybe Joe Flynn can tell us where Mike Flynn was on that day. If you're watching Joe, you can tweet us on that.
His brother.
His brother. Yeah. So you would know. Where was he? Was he there? I don't know if he was
Joe.
there.
Joe was in the Pentagon.
No, Charles was in the Pentagon, I think.
Something else too that I was thinking about just sort of hit my head when you said Russia hoax. Yeah. The other thing about Roger Stone is Julian Assange is still going through extradition, I believe, in the UK. Right. So I don't know if there's any information that might come as a result of those proceedings.
It would be interesting to see if that ever happens.
And the thing that got me about the January 5th event, there is, in Roger Stone finding God and some of these other things, it really did feel as though it was a victory lap for everybody involved. When you start to think about who was speaking in it, you've got Patrick Byrne in there, right? You've got Alexander. You've got all of the players and everybody who's been involved for this. It seems like it was a twofold event. One, it was to really get everybody ready for tomorrow and really sort of get the crowd ready. We're behind you. A lot of those conversations that people were speaking about were, you're the best people. You're the ones who are going to see us through this. You're the true patriots. Really building up that crowd in anticipation of the next day. And I think that's really important.
And Jesus.
And then, exactly. So I think Christ is King. We talked about that a little bit last night. We had the Jericho March on December 12th. So a lot of these things are, in fact, spiritual. There's a lot of conversations. Mike Flynn is involved with pastors. There's a whole other thing we can do about that.
Evangelicals.
There's a lot of evangelicals there on that day. There's no doubt about it.
There is an evangelical feel to this, and they really are tapping into that sort of evangelicalism that says, we are the chosen few, and we're the crusaders. We're
also the Moonies, all the same sort of cult-like organizations. Let's turn to Alex Jones. We're going to run out of time, I think, and we are.
Oh no.
We're good at talking a lot. You guys are good. I like this. So here's Alex Jones, InfoWars. This guy, I mean, he is kind of gross. There's no. You look at Stone, you can sort of see some redeeming features because at least he's the way he presents himself, he's fairly interesting. But there's nothing redeeming about Alex Jones. He's just a terrible person through and through. He's also weirdly, I discovered, awarded a prize. I can't remember the exact year between. At the same time, Maria Butina was awarded some sort of award by the Russian SVR's Information News Service. So was Alex Jones given an award for being some human rights hero of theirs by revealing the truth about America, whatever it was. So he's very tied in with Russia, and everyone should remember that both Stone and Jones are tied in with Russia. So that's an interesting, underpinning of all of this. But of course, he got the biggest subpoena letter of them all. Did three full pages for Mr. Jones over here. I'm going to pull them up, and we'll take a good look at what they say. So just because there's three of them, I separated them into different pages, but I think this is the first one. So it's the allegations here are kind of stunning. The investigation and public reports have revealed credible evidence of your involvement in the events. According to press reports and statements by you worked with Cindy Chaffian and Caroline Wren, which is a name everyone needs to remember because she comes up a lot, to help organize the January 6, 2021 Women for America First rally held on the Ellipse in Washington, D.C., including by facilitating a donor now known as Julie Fancelli to provide what you characterized as 80% of the funding. President Trump spoke at the rally shortly before the attack on the Capitol, urging the crowd to fight much harder and to stop this deal. You were reportedly denied a speaking slot at the WFAF event, but at the request of President Trump, who offered a venue to, and did in fact speak at the January 5th, 2021 rally on Freedom Plaza, sponsored by Mr. Chaffian's, or Ms. Chaffian's 80% coalition. So let's just identify some of the names that came up there. One of them was this person, Fancelli. She is the heiress to the, or no, I don't know if she's the heiress. She's one of the daughters, I guess, of the Publix grocery food chain in Florida, right? She gives out, I don't know why she's connected to this. I'm not sure how she's connected to this, but she pops up with $300,000, facilitated by none other than Caroline Wren. This woman over here, Caroline Wren, is Kimberly Guilfoyle's former number 2, and she comes up a lot. But, Joe, I know you've been looking into Caroline. So why don't you tell us a little bit about, just broadly, and we'll get into the details on her a little later on, but just broadly, who is she?
She is a fundraiser. So she was part of an organization called Blue Bonnet Funding, I believe. So she's been a GOP funder for a long time. She's worked with Amy Kramer. She's worked with Cindy Chaffian. So they are all kind of work together. There was even a falling out among those three, like Cindy and Amy and
of course there has to be one, right? So couldn't be that they actually get along. It's interesting. I also find out about her that she had this PAC, and this is not widely reported, but I think it's worth pointing it out here. She has this PAC called the Security Through Strength PAC. She gets a lot of money from a guy named James Ryan, who's who's quite an interesting guy, sort of a dark money guy, or linked to the mob, or mob-like people in Ohio of all places. And she gets a lot of his money from him. There's interesting names that he brings up, like Wexler and Epstein, all sorts of interesting names. That James Ryan, yeah. And apparently every time Lindsey Graham says something that you might think is crazy, he gets a little money from Security Through Strength PAC, from Caroline Wren's PAC. So that is how they are able to pull the Lindsey Graham strings, apparently. So interesting. Just as a side note, I thought that was worth giving you an idea of the kind of people we're dealing with here. Epstein.
Didn't Wexler sell his apartment for $3 or something to?
Wexler gave him the apartment. Yeah, gave him the whole house, the whole mansion, on the whole thing, the biggest mansion in New York, in Manhattan. He gave it to him just because, hey, you're a nice guy. Not wow. So let's get back to, where is he now? I'm sorry, I lost my place here. Where is Alex Jones? Page number 2 and 3 of the indictments. Oh, sorry, the subpoenas. I wish they were indictments. So in this is where it gets kind of interesting, because it really gets into the meat of what he did. So in the lead up to the events of January 6th, you and others on InfoWars repeatedly promoted President Trump's allegations of election fraud and urged people to come to Washington, D.C. for the January 6th Ellipse rally, and made statements implying that you had knowledge about the plans of President Trump with respect to the rally. Indeed, after President Trump tweeted on December 19th, big protest in D.C. on January 6th, be there, be wild, he went on InfoWars the same day and called the tweet one of the most historic events in American history. As if, I'm reading this, but I'm not showing it to you. There it is. You can read it for yourself, though. He also, it's interesting here, if you look at the first page there on the bottom, it talks about, on the Alex Jones show, he says, breaking, President Trump will officially speak at MAGA March in D.C. on January the 6th. All right, folks, we've got some big breaking exclusive news here for you that I am now authorized to tell you. This one's going to be the big one to repudiate the whole system. The president has not decided exactly when he's going to speak, but it's going to be a hint of with the supporters on the 6th, whatever, with him and the supporters. But the point is that he's breaking news on behalf of Donald Trump, which means Donald Trump or someone in Donald Trump's world is calling Alex Jones to say, I've got breaking news for you to tell your audience, because otherwise, how does he know this information? How is he getting all this big breaking exclusive news? He's only getting it because Donald Trump is communicating it to him, or someone in Donald Trump's world is communicating to him, which makes him a planner and a plotter, just like Donald Trump.
It makes him complicit in propaganda, because, I mean, he already has an audience, right? I mean, it's not like the InfoWars don't have an audience. They do.
Yeah, they do.
So they're using that platform. To
sure.
Get to the masses. So it's definitely part, he's actually part and parcel of propaganda.
And, those phone calls, I know that you heard the story earlier on about them using burner phones. I don't know if Alex Jones was using burner phones, but it seems like Creamer and others were using burner phones for all these private conversations. And you don't use burner phones unless you're doing something bad. That you shouldn't be doing.
Consciousness of guilt.
Yeah,
right?
exactly.
I mean, it's consciousness of guilt. It's knowing that you're doing something wrong.
Right.
And I think the other thing, and remember, this will be very quick. In June, there was Operation Trojan Shield. Do you remember that story? This a huge story came out about.
I don't remember what it was.
It was about how there was an infiltration of like cartels and transnational organized crime telephones that people were using, thinking they were burner phones, but the FBI was listening. They had all these tapes, so there was a multinational organization for law enforcement, and they were all coordinating this Operation Trojan Shield. So I'm hoping that these burner phones are part of that as well.
It's just stunning to me that they have people telling them about the burner phones, because the committee knows, obviously, for Rolling Stones to be reporting this, the committee must have information that the burner phones are being used. If you're getting some of these other subpoenas later on, it may give you a hint at who's
the Proud Boys. They've all used burner phones.
They've they're doing it for illegal. But if they're president of the United States, you should probably not use burner phones if you're communicating with the president of the United States about a coup. I mean, it's kind of obvious when you're, burner phones are fine, but it's just using with the purpose that we're using it for.
I get all my death threats on burner phones.
Do you? Oh, yeah. I'm so sorry to get those. It's terrible.
I know. It hasn't gotten in a while till after this show.
Don't ask for that. Don't tempt him. So where are we? We did Alex Jones, and it goes on. It goes on about how InfoWars was just used endlessly as a propaganda mechanism, as a means to tell.
Deplatformed. They were deplatformed.
But telling
all of them.
Donald Trump was using this vehicle. Donald Trump himself was using this vehicle to transmit information, to tell people what to do on January the 6th. And Alex Jones was the mouthpiece. And then you've got the speech that you got information. This was a credible moment that you got on tape there. Alex Jones is at this Freedom Plaza. He's speaking like Hitler. He's spitting out words. It's kind of frightening to look at, and even more frightening to listen to when you actually listen to the words. And I want to play some of it. I don't want to play all of it because it's actually, I'm sure we'll get cut off the air if we put it on. But you have to just appreciate the mindset this guy's in, and what he is trying to tell people is the truth in the world, and doing it in the kind of way that you would only do if you went to dictator school. I mean, he is really studied how he's going to be this guy, and how he's projecting this information into the audience as if it's real. So tell me about that moment when he got on stage there, and then we'll play some tape. And I think Stroya's introducing him as well.
Who he was? Is that who that was?
Yes, that's him. Yeah, Stroyer, or whatever his name is.
Oh, see, I didn't know any of these people till after. Yeah, I didn't.
Well, now you do. So
now I do. Yeah.
so
So
this is,
he comes out and he gives, and I described it in the video that I did. Now this video was a fire breather. It was like it was, and the speeches that they gave on December 12th were like, that's Stroyer.
I think
That's
so.
only Schroyer.
Troyer.
Yep.
So that's Stroyer. Yeah, Troyer.
Oh, okay.
Shoyer.
Thank you.
Yeah, sure. Yeah, that's an InfoWars guy.
Yeah.
Wow.
He was indicted, I think.
He was indicted. Yeah. Okay. Forget the shaky camera.
Don't worry about it. You're in a big crowd.
I'll tell you who I'm excited to here to see. It's you, the American people, unified in resistance to the New World Order.
New World Order.
Jesus saves behind him. So
To resist the globalists. We have only begun our fight against their tyranny. They have tried to steal this election in front of everyone. And as I told them 20 years ago, I tell them again, I don't know how this is going to end, but if they want to fight, they better believe they've got one.
Yeah, they're revving him up.
Sure is.
When you see Nancy Pelosi, or you see Barack Obama, or you see that slave of Satan, Joe Biden, they want to bankrupt you. They want to dumb you down. They want to hurt your children because they're fallen and because misery loves company. We renounce Satan. We renounce the Democratic Party. We renounce abortion.
Wow, abortion.
We renounce the Communist Party of China. But more importantly, we embrace God and family and justice and strength.
Wow.
Which, of course, is not the truth. Obviously, it's not the truth.
Wow.
But it's stunning. And he goes on about the Chinese Communist Party so much. This is his big bogeyman, right? This is the
I
enemy
wonder why.
that they're trying to fight. Meanwhile, the money for all of MAGA is coming from China.
It's coming from China,
You know, Sheldon Adelson gets his money through Macau. Macau gets all its money from China. It is part of China, of course, but all the casinos of there get their money. That's how
Bannon
Donald
and
Trump got.
Guy Guo.
Yeah, exactly. Bannon, Eric Prince, all these guys work for China. All these guys work for China, MAGA. And you're supporting, they bought your leaders out, and now you're running around doing what they want opposed to the Chinese Communist Party, but they're funding you.
Zev, let me say something about this speech.
Yeah.
What Trump did at his rallies, the ones I went to, he would say, they're the sinners, they're the devil, they're the spawn of hell, and you are the elites. They think they're the elites, but you're the elites. So what?
Right. Interesting.
What's his face is saying is that you're saved, and they're heathens. All of them are, the devil's whatever.
It's literally demonizing.
And Roger Stone says in his speech, he says this isn't. He winds it up, but he says this isn't about this or that. This is about good versus evil, light versus dark. I mean, this is a fight for the soul it's the devil and Daniel Webster, for fuck's sake.
And everyone, but the funny thing is, the people on the left and the people on the right all think that they're fighting for the good and for their and they're all correct, and they feel like they've got the right mission. But the thing is about the right is they're getting sold a bunch of lies, and I know they might think we're on the left are getting sold a bunch of lies, but we can actually back it up with facts, and it's really hard to back up these extraordinary lies that Alex Jones just told her. Yeah, I mean, we don't have maybe Jesus
facts
told
don't change. And I think that's when the truth doesn't change. So that's what we sort of need to keep our perspective on. The truth won't change, but tomorrow is Thanksgiving, and Mike Pillows said that he was going to have Trump installed as president by Thanksgiving. That's already, those goalposts have moved already. So the truth is consistent.
Yeah. It's going to be really interesting. I have a Mike Lindell episode coming up that he's going to blow your mind away, because it is just This guy is really fascinating. He's not just a pillow salesman, apparently. No shock to anybody here, I'm sure. So, let me just pack up a little bit and just re-emphasize to everybody. The money for January the 6th came largely from the Trump campaign, actually. 2.7 million came from the Trump campaign to cover a whole bunch of costs that was given to Women for America First. Now, it's not just America. A lot of the people who worked for the Trump campaign became Women for America First. So it's hard to tell where they stopped and started working for the campaign and when they started working for the Women for America First. But regardless, all of that money comes from the Preserve America PAC, which was Sheldon Adelson's, the late Sheldon Adelson's PAC, which means all that money came from China into the coffers of Donald Trump and then into the coffers of Women for America First. So, people need to really keep this in mind as they understand what's going on with this MAGA movement. This is a Chinese and probably Russian-influenced campaign to destabilize America. And it's, when you follow the money around the horn here, sure, it's Donald Trump at the top there, but it's also the Proud Boys. Who did the Proud Boys get all mysterious funding from people in Asia from the secret site? Well, they got it from China. A lot of the Chinese nationals were supportive of the Proud Boys.
Those guys were everywhere. Those guys on January 6th at all the rallies, those CCP or whatever, those blue flags.
Right.
When Bannon was arrested on Gua's boat, they had I was at his arraignment, and they had those blue flags everywhere.
Everywhere.
We love you, Mr. Bannon.
It's so interesting you're saying that, because in fact that's exactly, Guo is an agent of the state of China, and he can sue me if he doesn't if he thinks I'm lying, but I'm not. I'm telling you the truth, and that's just the case. He's welcome to sue because he's not going to win. And
we know that. We know this.
The truth is that these guys work they get their instructions from China. It doesn't mean that that they're going to be obviously pro-China. They're going to be actually opposed to China in their public utterances, because that is how they get legitimacy in this country. So Guo may style himself as some sort of dissident. He's not a dissident. He is merely an agent of China, and that's who paid Bannon. So then you've got also, I mentioned the Sheldon Adelson money. Of course, the Sands, which is Sheldon Adelson's big investment. He's now pulled out of Vegas, and now he's exclusively located in Macau. His wife's obviously running it now, because he's passed away. Also, Chinese money. Publix, we spoke about. Mooney's, we suspect, is also Chinese money. And the Koch brothers, well, that's just the Koch brothers, or the Koch family as they are now. This is the people who funded, January the 6th. This is how we got to that incredibly disruptive event. And it involves a lot of very, very wealthy people as well. People who are not used to being hauled up in front of a commission or being named for doing anything bad. People like Miriam and Sheldon Adelson, we've mentioned before.
Right.
Ken Griffin of the hedge fund CEO, the Mellon Steel fortune heir, Timothy Mellon, the Blackstone CEO, Stephen Schwartzman, and the Uline owner, Richard Uline. So that's why it's so hard to get any traction for what's going on with January 6th. And that's why it's so hard to get the DOJ to actually, take down some of these big people, because they're backed by so many rich and powerful forces. And you've got to keep that in mind as we start, thinking about how to challenge what's going to happen. I mean, sure, the commission is going to give us a report of some sort. Hopefully it'll be truthful and accurate, and hopefully it'll guide us to some extent about how we can not have this happen again. But these rich and powerful people are not going to jail. They're not going to be held accountable. I don't think. It's my personal opinion.
I think this is just to be comprehensive. The January 6th committee would have to. I mean, first things first. If they don't win the 2022 midterms, there won't be a January 6th committee. So, from a democracy, preservation perspective, voting in the 2022 midterms is paramount.
That's a really good election platform for everybody to be running on. Is have the keep the committees going, keep the truth going. That's a really good idea, actually. Sorry, just interrupt you.
Well, I think the journalists, you mentioned this last night, I think the journalists are going to have to take all of this. That's why the shows like yours are so important. What's happening in various publications, like the Rolling Stone, and as well as, of course, Washington Post and all that. But I think I know the journalists aren't going to give up on this. So just keep giving us fodder. And we just can't let it go. We can't let it go because we lose the election. It's just, that doesn't make any sense to me.
Yeah, and we can't let it go because this is the most disruptive event to American democracy in American history. And so
Yeah.
we have to understand it, at least. We have to understand the forces that have happened. And there's no ways we can reverse these forces or challenge them without at least understanding who it was that made it happen. It's a lot of money to do an event like that. And there's a lot of, you've got to really want to do it. Like, I mean, you want to really disrupt an election and try reinstall a president that isn't even really that popular amongst everybody, I should say, certainly popular amongst his own crowd. I mean, you've really got to think that that's a wise idea. And I don't think that was the point. I think the point was to disrupt democracy. The point was not to put Donald Trump chaos and violence and divisiveness and polarization. That is what they wanted. And to some extent, that is what they got.
Right.
Yeah,
And that's what the anti-vax movement has moved into with all the the Proud Boys were in New York this week.
Oh, they were?
Yeah. I filmed them.
Oh,
they were at an anti-vax rally, an anti-mandate rally.
And they just moved from one thing to another. One thing to another. Yeah. It's just like it's a machine.
And so was Nick Fuentes. Nick Fuentes was there too.
You mentioned that yesterday. I'm really, this anti-vax thing, the school boards thing, it's just, it's all adding up to a very dark and cynical movement in politics. And this maybe is what the GOP, feels like it needs to be to survive, but it's just a travesty for America. It really is a travesty for America. We have to find a way to shrink that party down to size and beat them next year because boy, this fight is not ending anytime soon. A few years ago, I thought this was going to be this Trump-Russia thing was going to last for a year and we'll be done. It looks like it's still going on and on and on and on. But that's a testament to all the good work that you guys do. And thank you very much for all your reporting, Sandy. Thank you very much, Joe, for all your research. Incredible stuff that both of you have done, but so many other people in the community have done. It is remarkable how much information we have to at least know that the commission is on the right track. Without all this research and independent investigations and all these findings, we would not know that the investigation was on the right track. And they certainly are doing a fantastic job and a really good job. So I'm thankful that you guys are here tonight, and I'm thankful that you're here, especially on Thanksgiving. And I wish you both a good Thanksgiving.
Thank you.
What do you have planned?
To you and yours.
Thank you. What do you have planned?
I'm going to go shoot the parade tomorrow.
Oh, it's back. They're having a parade.
It's back. Yeah.
Yay.
Last year was like teeny weeny. It was like we were like 2 blocks away from the floats, and it was like so frustrating. But it's back.
That's good. Everyone's going to be vaccinated and no kids under 12, apparently.
Is that right?
I think so. Oh. I read that. I don't know if that's true, but that's what I read.
Yeah.
I think it's accurate.
So
what about you, Joe? Do you have anything interesting planned for tomorrow?
I'm going to relax tomorrow. I'm going to hit the couch, I think.
I'm going to do the same thing. I'll watch the parade on TV. I assume it's going to be on. Thank you very much for being here tonight. You too. I know it's hard on a holiday night. And thank you, everybody at home, for watching Narrative. As you know, I've been on a bit of a drive lately to increase the number of patrons. So check out the patreon.com/narrative site, where I tell you all about why it's so important to support Narrative as we continue the fight for truth and democracy in the United States. And on that note, I will say goodnight. We will not be here live on Friday. There's no after show on Friday, but there is a repeat broadcast of the interview I did with oh my God, Kirby Summers, I almost forgot her name, about Ghislaine Maxwell. That'll be re-aired on Friday. It's a really good interview. I have not played the full thing yet, so you will hear a lot of new stuff there. This Friday at 7 p.m., Kirby Summers talks about Ghislaine Maxwell in lieu of the after show, and I will be back live next Tuesday on Narrative with a really special show. We'll talk to you then, and until then, da-da-da-da, have a good night, everybody. Happy Thanksgiving, and I got to find some tape here to play, and good night, everybody.
Good night.
Good night, everybody. One more time.
Happy Thanksgiving, everyone.
Beautiful.